Thank you for plugging into this Family Life News podcast, streaming issues-driven, family-focused news.
Welcome back to another edition of Real Answers with Christopher Anderson. Wednesdays, during the Noon Report, we tackle the tough topics facing today's families with licensed mental health counselor Christopher Anderson. And with school now in full swing, I think it's a good idea to revisit a topic that we discussed last year around the same time, and that's keeping kids safe on the internet. Chris?
Yeah, Brandon, that's right. And today we're going to be discussing what you as parents need to know to help keep your kids safe from the dangers that are lurking in the cyber world.
Chris, are there any new threats that maybe people aren't aware of?
Well, it's not necessarily the newness of the threats as much as the amount of time that children are spending online keeps increasing. Now, of course, that became very evident with the pandemic. But even with my own son, who's barely old enough to talk, he wants to watch things online, and I just need to be aware of how his videos are being presented. But one thing that I really want to bring to everyone's attention at this time is what can happen when you post photos of your children online. Unless your settings on your social media platforms are very specific as to who can see your photos, your pictures will be out there for pretty much anyone to download, print, and or use any way they want. And I was speaking with a friend of mine from church who actually works in the internet and computing industry, and she cautioned me directly about this, stating that there are predators who may utilize pictures that you post for their own sinful purposes. So it is hard to even mention this on the air, but I'll tell you, it needs to be said that people can actually, and a lot of people already know this, people can edit photos, cut and paste, that type of thing, and cause significant issues and or other things that were just, like I said, are very sinful, that are very evil practices. So posting photos on various public platforms is risky and may put your children's photos in the hands of people that you would not want to be near your children at all.
Or Chris, what happens if a parent or someone becomes aware of a potential problem with photographs that you or your child has posted online? And to clarify, we're not necessarily talking about explicit or inappropriate pictures here.
That's right, Brandon. We're not talking about just explicit pictures. We're talking about any pictures. And it's good to clarify that, and that's correct. We are talking about perfectly fine pictures being used by criminals. They can be used for identifying children for trafficking purposes and or other disturbing and evil practices. If you are aware of an issue or suspect that there is an issue or a problem with someone who may have contacted your child online or otherwise may have your child's photographs for less than healthy purposes, don't hesitate to contact your local law enforcement and then also to report it to whatever social media platform was involved. They can initiate investigations. It may also be a good idea to let your school know, and law enforcement can help you make that decision as well. Let the school know that there is a problem that may exist so that they can also be aware of what might be happening.
What can parents do to help reduce the possibility of inappropriate activity or contact by strangers online?
Well, one of the biggest things is to make sure that you are aware of what your children are doing online at all times. Monitor directly their activity online. Older kids may protest, saying that you are not respecting their space or trusting them, but parents, you got to toe this line, because that is just not true, that you are performing your God-given role to protect them, and it's not that you don't trust them, it's that you don't trust the others who are out there, okay, who are clever and devious enough to hack into their accounts or otherwise contact them or use their pictures inappropriately. So secondly, begin to have discussions with your kids at an appropriate age about the dangers that exist with online activity. Of course, you don't want to scare your children, but at the same time, you want them to be aware that not everyone out there is safe. And being consistent with your attempts to talk to your kids about these things will go a long way to teaching them to make good decisions once they become older, once they reach those preteen and teenage years especially. Thirdly, you can actually have monitoring and filtering software installed on any and all devices that your children may be using. And this will help make your job easier so you can actually receive reports directly mailed to you in the event that unusual or dangerous activity is occurring on your children's devices. Fourthly, and this may ruffle some feathers, but your children do not need to have their own devices at too early of an age. I find it hard to believe when I see preteens or even younger children having their own devices. I realize that at school, they need to have access to a laptop or access to a touchpad or whatever, But you need to ask yourself as a parent, what is the minimum usage that my children will need in order to do assignments, and how soon can I shut those devices down afterwards?
Any final thoughts or suggestions?
Brandon, remember there's a whole world of activities out there that existed prior to the advent of the internet and social media. I like to get my oldest out. We go out into the backyard and just do little backyard safaris, looking for nature, looking at the plants and the animals that we can see right in our own backyard. So get out there, enjoy it. Besides, we know what weather is lurking here in the next couple of months here, so it's a good idea to get outside and enjoy the weather while we have it.
You've been listening to another edition of Real Answers with Christopher Anderson. It airs Wednesdays during the Noon Report. We tackle the tough topics facing today's families with Christian counselor Christopher Anderson.